I'm going to talk to you a little bit about pastel today. Pastel has been around probably since the 1400s. It's a very old medium, has a great history, but it's changed a lot over the years. But a lot of people don't understand how they're made. Pastels are made from dry artist pigment and with just enough binder to roll them into a stick. And the dry artist pigment is the same dry artist pigment that they use to make oil paint and watercolors and other mediums. And artist pigments, there's millions of pigments in the world, but artists are only allowed to use ones that are rated light fast. So that eliminates a lot of the pigments that we can use. But essentially, a pastel is like a dry, beautiful powder and a little bit of binder and a little bit of water, and you stir it up into a stiff paste and you hand roll it or you run it through a machine. A lot of people, when they think of pastel, they think of chalk, and they think of chalkboard chalk, which is all binder and no pigment, or they think of sidewalk chalk, which is the same, all binder and no pigment. But a good pastels have a lot of pigment in them, and that the more pigment, the softer they are. So that is kind of important. You want them soft, but sometimes not too soft. So usually the binders are different kinds of gums. I make my own pastels, and I just don't use any binder anymore because I feel like most of the pigments don't require it. I can just roll them up and they're good to go. And where these pigments come from confuses a lot of people. Some of them are naturally occurring pigments like yellow ochre and raw sienna. All these are more or less sort of dirt clays that have been purified, that you can find them in a quarry somewhere. And then there's colors like ultramarine blue that they've learned how to make in a laboratory by adding certain colors together, chemicals together, and that creates this chemical reaction that creates this color. So those are called synthetics. So you have some synthetic ones, you've got natural pigments. Initially, pastels didn't come in a great palette when they started out. Started out as sort of a portrait medium, and there were these sort of itinerant portrait artists that used them and did a lot of blending. But in the 1400s, an artist named Chardin started painting with them in beautiful, realistic still lives. And then probably the most famous pastel artist is Edgar Degas. And he did a lot of innovation with the pastels and in the surfaces and how he made them. And he used to hang them over steaming kettles and work into them with brushes and all sorts of things. These are some of the brands that are popular now. These are Sennelier pastels. And that's a very historical company that's been around since the Impressionist days. And even Monet and some of the early Impressionists used their chalks, so they have a long history, nice bright colors. And these are Unison pastels, and they're made in Scotland, handmade, and a lot of pretty colors. This is Rembrandt. This is probably the most popular brand of pastel. They come in a wide range of colors and a lot of different tints. Really excellent for line kind of work. The softer ones are a little bit better for broad strokes and things like that. These are Faber-Castell harder pastels. These are great for detail. They have a square edge. And these have been improved a lot over the years, and there's a lot of beautiful rich colors in those now too. So artists use pastels in different ways, depending on what their style is. Some artists like to start with harder brands and then work towards softer brands when they need the really intense colors. And some artists like to use the harder brands, period, because they do a lot of detail work. And some artists are more like me. I like to make my own, and I like to make these big handmade pastels because I work kind of broadly. And so these work well for me. So there's a pastel that works well for every artist, and it's a wonderful medium, and I hope you'll try it. Thank you.